Have you ever noticed how everyone talks about retirement like it's the finish line? Work for 40 years, save up $1 million. Then finally, at age 65, you get to start living your life. But here's something that might shock you. Wealthy people don't retire, at least not in the way you've been taught to think about it. Warren Buffett is 94 years old, still working, still investing, still running Berkshire Hathaway. Elon Musk could retire tomorrow and live 10 lifetimes in luxury. But he's launching rockets and building companies. Mark Cuban sold his company for billions in his 40s. Did he retire? No. He bought a basketball team and started investing in startups. Here at Simple Money, we've spent years studying how wealthy people think about work, money, and freedom. And what we've discovered is fascinating. The retirement model you've been sold? It's actually designed to keep you poor, or at least not wealthy. Today, I'm going to reveal why retirement is a myth that wealthy people don't believe in, and more importantly, what they do instead that actually creates freedom. Because here's the thing. Once you understand what retirement really is, you can start building something much better. So here's what's really happening with the traditional retirement model. You start working at age 22, maybe 25 if you go to grad school. You get a job, a salary, benefits, and immediately everyone tells you the same thing. Save for retirement. Put money in your 401k. Max out your IRA. The promise is simple. If you sacrifice now, work hard for 4 decades, and save diligently, you'll get to retire at 65 with enough money to live comfortably. So you do it. You put away 10% of your income, maybe 15 if you're really disciplined. You watch it grow slowly over the years. You're 45 years old now. You've been doing this for 20 years. You check your retirement account. Maybe it's got $300,000 in it, maybe $500,000 if you've been aggressive. And you start doing the math. Will this be enough? How much do I need? What if I live to 90? What about healthcare? The anxiety sets in. So you save more, cut back on expenses, delay gratification. Tell yourself it'll all be worth it when you retire. Then you hit 65. You retire. And here's what nobody prepared you for. Your income drops by 50% or more. You're living on a fixed budget. You're stressed about money in a completely different way than before. And the thing you spent 4 decades working toward, the freedom, it doesn't feel like freedom at all. You can't afford to travel like you imagined. Your body isn't as capable as it was. Your friends are in the same situation. Or worse, they're still working because they couldn't save enough. This isn't because you did something wrong. It's because the entire model is broken. Think about it this way. You're told to defer living your life for 40 years, and your reward is getting to be old with slightly more money than Social Security provides. That's not a dream. That's a trap. Meanwhile, wealthy people are living completely differently. They're not waiting until 65 to enjoy life. They're not sacrificing their present for an uncertain future. They've figured out something most people never learn. Retirement isn't the goal. Freedom is. And freedom doesn't require stopping work. It requires changing your relationship with work. So let's talk about the first thing wealthy people understand. I call this the income shift. Most people have one income stream, their job. They trade time for money. Work 40 hours, get paid for 40 hours. This is what's called linear income, and it has a ceiling. There are only so many hours you can work, only so much you can charge per hour. Even if you're a highly paid professional making $200,000 a year, you're still trapped. You stop working, the money stops. Wealthy people structure their income completely differently. They build multiple income streams that don't require their direct time. Rental properties, dividend stocks, businesses they own but don't operate, royalties, investment income. This is called non-linear income, and it changes everything. Here's why this matters. When your income doesn't depend on you working, retirement becomes irrelevant. You don't need to retire because you're not exhausted from trading time for money. You work because you want to, not because you have to. Let me give you a specific example. Meet 2 people, both age 50. Both have built up $1 million in net worth. Person A has it all in a retirement account. They can't touch it without penalties. They're still working their job because they need the income. Person B has it in rental properties generating $60,000 per year. They keep working, but only because they enjoy it. Their expenses are covered. Same net worth. Completely different freedom level. Here's the psychology behind this. Humans don't actually hate work. We hate forced work. We hate feeling trapped. We hate the lack of choice. When your income comes from assets instead of time, everything changes. You might still work, but it's a choice. And that psychological difference is everything. Wealthy people understand this early, so they're not building a big retirement account. They're building income-producing assets that make retirement unnecessary. The goal isn't to save up enough money to stop working at 65. The goal is to build enough passive income that working becomes optional at any age. This is what financial independence actually means. Not retirement, choice. The second thing wealthy people understand is what I call the ownership principle. When you work a job, you're renting out your time. Your employer owns your output. You get paid, but you own nothing. Work for 30 years, get paid well, retire, and you walk away with whatever you manage to save. But you don't own any piece of the value you created. Wealthy people flip this completely. They focus on ownership, not wages. They start businesses, buy real estate, invest in companies, build equity. Every hour they work builds something they own, something that has value even when they're not working. Here's why this is so powerful. Ownership appreciates, wages don't. If you make $100,000 a year for 30 years, you made $3 million total before taxes. Sounds like a lot, right? But if you own 10% of a company that grows from 0 to 10 million in value over 30 years, you just made $1 million. And you still own it. It keeps growing. Now, this isn't about everyone starting a business. That's not realistic or necessary, but it is about shifting your mindset from how much can I earn to what can I own. Maybe you can't start a business, but you can buy index funds. That's ownership in thousands of companies. Maybe you can't buy a rental property right now, but you can invest in REITs. That's fractional ownership in real estate. The point is building equity, not just collecting paychecks. Let me show you the math on this. Two people again. Both start with nothing at age 25. Person A focuses on maximizing their salary, climbs the corporate ladder, makes $200,000 a year by age 45, saves aggressively, has $800,000 in their retirement account. Person B makes less, maybe $100,000 a year, but they bought a duplex at age 30, then another at 35, and started a small side business at 40. By age 45, Person B has only $400,000 in retirement savings, but they own two properties worth $700,000, with $300,000 in equity, plus a business worth $200,000. Person B's net worth is actually higher, but here's what's really different. Person B's assets produce income. Person A's retirement account just sits there. Person B could stop working tomorrow. Person A needs to keep working for 20 more years before they can touch their retirement money without penalties. The wealthy understand something most people miss. Accumulating money is good. Owning assets that produce money is better. And when you own income-producing assets, retirement becomes an outdated concept. You don't retire from ownership. You just enjoy the income. Now here's the third principle, and this one really challenges conventional wisdom. I call it the work evolution. Most people see work as something to escape from, a burden, a necessary evil until retirement. Wealthy people see work as something to evolve, to design, to optimize for enjoyment and meaning. They're not trying to stop working. They're trying to only do work they love. Think about it. If you could design your perfect work situation, what would it look like? Maybe it's working 20 hours a week instead of 40. Maybe it's working on projects you're passionate about. Maybe it's having complete control over your schedule. Maybe it's consulting a few days a month for high rates. Maybe it's building a business around your hobby. Maybe it's teaching or mentoring. The point is, there's probably some version of work you'd actually enjoy. Work that gives you purpose, social connection, mental stimulation, a reason to get up in the morning. Wealthy people spend their careers moving toward that version of work, not toward stopping work entirely. Here's what makes this particularly powerful. When you're working toward work you love, you don't feel like you're sacrificing your present for your future. You're building something sustainable, something you can do at 60, at 70, at 80, if you want. Compare this to the traditional model. You do work you tolerate for 40 years, then you stop cold turkey at 65. What happens? A lot of retirees get depressed. They lose their sense of purpose, their social connections, their daily structure. Studies show that people who retire completely often die earlier than people who continue some form of work they enjoy. This isn't because work itself is healthy, it's because purpose, connection, and mental engagement are healthy. And for many people, work provides those things. Let me give you a specific scenario. Two doctors, both successful, both age 60. Dr. A retires, stops working completely, plays golf, travels a bit. After 6 months, he's bored, depressed, misses the intellectual challenge in helping patients. Dr. B cuts back to 2 days a week, only takes cases he finds interesting, mentors younger doctors, travels when he wants, works because he enjoys it, not because he needs the money. Who's happier? Who's healthier? Who's more fulfilled? This is what wealthy people figure out. The goal isn't zero work. The goal is work that energizes you instead of drains you. And here's the beautiful part. When you're building toward work you love, you don't need to count down the days until retirement. Every year can be good, not just the years after 65. The fourth thing wealthy people understand is what I call the tax game. And this might be the most practical reason why retirement doesn't make sense for them. Here's how retirement accounts work. You put money in, it grows tax deferred. Then when you retire and withdraw it, you pay taxes on everything. The government is essentially your partner. They own a piece of your retirement account. You just don't know exactly how much until you withdraw it. Now, for most people, this is still a good deal. The tax deduction now and compound growth make up for the taxes later. But here's what wealthy people figured out. There are better ways to structure your finances that give you more control and flexibility. They use strategies like tax loss, harvesting, opportunity zones, qualified dividends, long-term capital gains rates. They keep their money accessible and working, not locked up until age 59 and a half. But here's what's really interesting. The retirement account system was designed for employees, not business owners, not investors. If you own a business, you have massive tax advantages that retirement accounts can't match. Depreciation, business expenses, entity structures. If you're investing in real estate, you have different advantages. Depreciation again, 1031 exchanges, step-up basis when you die. Wealthy people use these strategies, which means they're not concentrating all their wealth in retirement accounts. Their money is spread across assets they control, assets they can access anytime, assets that produce income now, not just in retirement. Here's a specific example. Someone puts $500,000 into a retirement account. It grows to $1 million by age 65. Sounds great, but they can't touch it before then without penalties. And when they do withdraw it, they pay ordinary income tax rates. Maybe 25%, maybe 35%. So that $1 million is really $650,000 to $750,000 after taxes. Now compare that to someone who puts that same $500,000 into a mix of investments, index funds, real estate, maybe a business. They pay some taxes along the way, but they have access to the money. They can use it for opportunities, emergencies, life. And when they sell assets, they often pay lower capital gains rates, maybe 15%, sometimes 0 if they're strategic. Plus, they've been using the money all along, not locked away for decades. The psychology here is crucial. When your wealth is locked up until retirement, you feel poor even when you're not. You can't use the money you've accumulated. But when your wealth is accessible and productive, you feel wealthy now, not just in your theoretical future. Wealthy people want to feel wealthy today, so they structure their finances for flexibility and current benefit, not just future security. The fifth principle is what I call the legacy mindset. Most people think about retirement as the end. You work, you save, you retire, you spend down your savings until you die. You're essentially planning to die broke, or close to it. That's the retirement model. Wealthy people think about legacy. They're building something that outlives them. When you're thinking about legacy, retirement doesn't make sense. You don't stop building just because you hit 65. You might change how you work, who you work with, what projects you take on, but you don't stop entirely. Because you're not just building for yourself, you're building for your kids, your grandkids, the causes you care about. This creates a completely different relationship with work and money. Let me show you what I mean. A typical retiree is thinking, do I have enough to last until I die? That's a scarcity mindset. A wealthy person with a legacy mindset is thinking, how can I make this grow and last for generations? That's an abundance mindset. Same money, completely different psychology, completely different decisions. When you're in legacy mode, you're not trying to time your death to match your bank account hitting zero. You're trying to keep building, keep growing, keep creating value. This affects everything: how you invest, how you spend, what risks you take, what opportunities you pursue. Here's a specific comparison. Two people, both age 70, both have $2 million. Person A is retired, living off 4% withdrawals, $80,000 a year, watching the balance slowly decrease, stressed about market downturns, worried about outliving their money. Person B never retired. They still own rental properties, a small business, dividend stocks. These assets generate $90,000 a year in income. Person B's wealth is actually growing, even at age 70, because the assets appreciate faster than their spending. When Person A dies, their kids inherit whatever's left. Maybe 1 million, maybe 500,000. Depends on how long they lived and how the market performed. When Person B dies, their kids inherit income-producing assets, properties, business equity. These assets will keep producing income for the next generation. Same starting point, but completely different outcomes because of completely different mindsets. Here's what makes this even more powerful. When you have a legacy mindset, you're more motivated to keep learning, keep adapting, stay relevant. You're not just killing time until you die. You're actively engaged in building something meaningful. This keeps you sharper, healthier, more connected to the world, more purposeful. Retirement often means stagnation. Legacy means continued growth, even in your 70s and 80s. Now here's what nobody wants to admit, and this is going to be uncomfortable. The retirement system was never designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you stop working. Let me explain the history here. Retirement as we know it was invented around 1935 with Social Security. Before that, people worked until they couldn't anymore. Then their family took care of them. Or they died. The retirement age was set at 65. You know what the average life expectancy was then? About 61 for men. So retirement was originally designed as a short period before death, not a 30-year vacation. But here's what's really interesting. Who benefited from the retirement system? Companies benefited. They could clear out older, more expensive workers, make room for younger, cheaper employees. The government benefited. Social Security was a way to manage unemployment and provide basic security. But did individuals benefit? That's questionable. You work your entire productive life building wealth for others, for companies, for the economy, and your reward is being pushed out when you're still capable. This is why wealthy people don't participate in this system. They see through it. They're not building wealth for companies. They're building it for themselves through ownership. They're not waiting for permission to stop working. They're designing work they never want to stop doing. They're not dependent on Social Security or company pensions. They've built their own income systems. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The retirement model keeps you dependent on your employer, on the government, on market returns you can't control. Wealthy people want independence, so they build systems that provide income and control regardless of their age. This might sound cynical, but think about it. Why do we accept that the best years of our lives should be traded for the promise of security when we're old? Why not build security now? Build freedom now? Build enjoyment into the journey instead of deferring it? Wealthy people ask these questions, and they come up with different answers. They'd rather work 3 days a week doing something they love at age 40 than work 5 days a week doing something they tolerate until age 65. They'd rather have $50,000 a year in passive income at age 35 than wait 30 years to access their retirement accounts. They'd rather build something meaningful that lasts than accumulate money they're trained to slowly spend down. This isn't about being greedy or materialistic. It's about designing a life that's fulfilling throughout, not just at the end. Let me tell you about David. David did everything right according to the traditional playbook. Got a good job out of college. Started contributing to his 401k immediately. 15% of every paycheck. He worked hard, got promotions. By age 45, he was making $130,000 a year. And he had $700,000 in his retirement account. David felt good about this. He was on track. maybe even ahead of schedule. But here's what was really happening. David was exhausted. His job was stressful. He didn't enjoy it anymore. But he couldn't leave because he needed the income and the 401k match. His money was locked up. Growing, yes, but completely inaccessible without massive penalties. He started counting down. 20 more years until 65. 20 more years of this stress, this grind, this feeling of being trapped. David had built a golden cage. He had money, but no freedom. Security, but no flexibility. Then at age 52, he got laid off. Company restructuring, nothing personal. Suddenly, David's plan fell apart. He was too young to access his retirement funds without penalties, too old to easily get hired at his previous salary level. He had to take a lower-paying job, cut back his retirement contributions, watch his timeline extend. The retirement he'd been sacrificing for kept getting pushed further away, and he felt powerless to change it. David's not a failure. He followed the rules. But the rules were designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. A world where you work for one company your whole career, where pensions are guaranteed, where 65 still makes sense as a retirement age. Now let me tell you about Maria. Maria started with similar circumstances to David. Good job, decent income, but at age 30, Maria made a different choice. She bought a small duplex, house-hacked it, lived in one unit, rented the other. The rent covered most of her mortgage. She was building equity while living cheaply. At 35, she saved up and bought another rental property. Now she had 2 income streams beyond her job. At 40, Maria started a consulting side business, just a few hours a week, but it was doing work she actually enjoyed. By 45, Maria's situation looked different than David's. She had less in her retirement account, maybe $400,000, but she owned 2 rental properties worth $600,000 total, with $400,000 in equity, and her consulting business was generating $30,000 a year. Here's what this meant. Maria's rental income was covering most of her living expenses. Her consulting income was extra. Her job was now optional. So when Maria got laid off at age 50, it wasn't a crisis. It was an opportunity. She ramped up her consulting, took on more projects she enjoyed, worked from home, set her own schedule. Her income actually went up. And she was happier, less stressed, more in control. By age 55, Maria was financially independent. Not retired, but free. She could work as much or as little as she wanted, take on interesting projects, turn down boring ones, travel when she felt like it. Her retirement accounts kept growing because she wasn't touching them. Her rental properties kept appreciating. Her business kept evolving. Maria didn't retire at 65 because she didn't need to. She was already living the life people dream about in retirement. The difference between David and Maria wasn't luck. It wasn't starting capital. It wasn't even intelligence. It was understanding. Maria understood that retirement wasn't the goal. Freedom was. And freedom comes from assets, not age. Here's what most people don't realize, and this is the real secret wealthy people understand. Retirement isn't actually a financial milestone. It's a mental trap. The entire concept of retirement is based on a flawed premise. That work is bad and not working is good. But that's not actually true. Bad work is bad. Forced work is bad. Work without purpose is bad. But meaningful work? Work you choose? Work that energizes you? That's actually good, even healthy. The goal isn't to stop working. The goal is to reach a point where work is optional, where you work because you want to, not because you need to. This is what wealthy people figured out. They don't retire from work. They graduate from needing it. There's a massive difference. When you retire, you stop. When you graduate, you evolve. You might work less. You might work differently. You might focus on different things. But you're still engaged, still building, still contributing. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop seeing retirement as the goal, you stop deferring your life. You don't have to wait until 65 to enjoy yourself, to do meaningful work, to have freedom and flexibility. You can start building those things now, today, whatever age you are. Maybe you can't quit your job tomorrow, but you can start building side income. Start acquiring assets. Start evolving your work towards something you actually enjoy. The retirement model says suffer now, enjoy later. The wealth model says design your life to be good throughout. Which sounds better? Which is actually achievable? Because here's the thing. Most people never make it to their dream retirement anyway. Life happens. Health issues, family needs, economic changes. But if you build freedom along the way, you're not gambling everything on one future date. You're winning continuously. This is what wealthy people understand. Life isn't a deferred gratification competition. It's about creating sustainable enjoyment and meaning throughout the journey. Retirement is the finish line mentality. Wealth building is the infinite game mentality. One has an endpoint. The other keeps evolving forever. So let's bring this all together. The 5 reasons wealthy people don't believe in retirement? The income shift. Building multiple income streams that don't require trading time for money. Making retirement unnecessary. The ownership principle. Focusing on equity and assets instead of wages. Building wealth that produces income instead of just accumulating savings. The work evolution. Designing work you actually enjoy instead of planning to escape from work you tolerate. The tax game. Using flexible strategies that give you control and access now instead of locking everything up until 65. And the legacy mindset. Building something that lasts beyond you instead of planning to spend down everything before you die. These aren't about being rich. They're about thinking differently about work, money, and freedom. You can start implementing these principles at any income level. It just looks different at different scales. Maybe you can't buy rental properties right now, but you can start investing in dividend stocks. That's the income shift on a smaller scale. Maybe you can't start a business tomorrow, but you can start learning skills that could become a side income. That's the ownership principle in development. Maybe you can't quit your job, but you can start thinking about what work you'd actually enjoy. That's the work evolution beginning. The point is, retirement as traditionally defined is outdated. It made sense in 1935. It doesn't make sense now. We're living longer, working differently. The economy has changed. Technology has changed everything. The old model of work 40 years, save $1 million, then stop doesn't create freedom. It creates a different kind of trap. But building income-producing assets, creating work you love, that creates actual freedom. At any age. So the question isn't when can you retire? The question is, what are you building that makes retirement irrelevant? Because once you shift from retirement thinking to freedom thinking, everything changes. You're not counting down the years until you can stop working. You're building up the assets that make work optional. You're not sacrificing your present for an uncertain future. You're creating a present that's sustainable and enjoyable. The wealthy don't retire because they've built lives they don't want to retire from. That's the real secret. So what kind of life are you building?